UConn dominates Louisville, but the concern is about Azzi Fudd. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available where you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, we do what we always do, which is thank you guys for the support. This podcast has grown so much. It's because of fans like you who value great UConn content. We're proud to say that we're the only daily podcast covering both UConn men's and women's basketball, the basketball capital of the world, 100%. And we're thrilled to bring you the coverage that you deserve. And to show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. And we're also making monthly donations to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting NIL initiatives that make a difference. If you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start this new season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay. If you're a UConn fan, first things first. They win this game Saturday night, 85-52, over Louisville at the Women's Champions Classic in the Barclays Centers in Brooklyn. One of those games that leaves you sitting back with a big grin because it wasn't just the final score that was impressive. It was how they got it done. This game showed what makes UConn, well, UConn, and the depth, the grit, the kind of dominance that comes when you have talent pouring out of every position on the floor. And let's be real, this wasn't even their best performance. So if you think about it, Paige Bueckers, coming off of her brand new shoe launch, didn't really have it offensively. She was 2 of 11 from the field. When was the last time we've seen that? I can't say it. But doesn't stop this team. Not a chance. That's what makes them dangerous. Even when superstar Paige Bueckers is off, they've got players like Sarah Strong, who we will talk about today on a little bit later in the program. She is just incredible. And then, of course, you had Azzi having a nice game as well, ready to carry the load. But speaking of Azzi, we talked about it in the cold open. She was lights out. She had 18 points, 4 of 7 from 3. It's like every time she got an open look, it was automatic. You can already kind of put it down. Was that like Sharpie? But I'll tell you exactly what happened with me last night. So it's late. It's a late game. So my wife and I are handling the kids, and I say, well, I'll stay up with our 2-month-old because, or almost 3-month-old, because she was asleep on the couch, and our oldest son middle son had to go to bed. And so we kind of split those duties, and I'm watching the game. And I put my head down for a second to check on her. And the next play, I look over, and it's the corner 3 that Azzi drains. So I'm like, phew, she's on fire. Not because when I watch these games, the volume is low. So if there, I don't catch all of like the Tim Brando stuff, what he was doing the game last night. And so I didn't know that she got into kind of a little bit of an entanglement with the Louisville players, where she, went down, and it looked kind of non-contact-ish, but it also could have been a knee-to-knee situation. So I'm like, oh, okay. So they go to commercial, and during the commercial, I look at my phone and I get a text from our own Dan Meehan, who helps us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and he went Azzi Fudd with like a sad emoji and like eyes, and I was just like, yeah. And all I said was like, yeah. She's like almost like I felt like he was saying like, wow, she's playing really well. And I was like, yeah, she's such a difference maker. And he said, no, her knee. And I went, what? And so as they come back, I like went and looked on Twitter really quick, and you see her like going to the and I think Maggie and Emily also said that she's going to the locker room. So I'm just like, come on, like, my heart stopped for her for that moment. Everything that she's been through, it was a lot. I had a really tough, few minutes there as I'm watching the game. It almost felt like, not to be dramatic, but like time froze a little bit. I'm emotional looking at my daughter, and then you're thinking about what this girl has gone through, and I just had a feeling of dread. And so, as the time goes on, she's an absolute warrior. Fudd walks back to the bench, and I text Dan back and I said, well, she looks like she's on the bench. And then obviously Maggie and Emily's coverage has kind of been very solid during game day. And they say, she's given a thumbs up to her teammates, and that Geno came over and talked to her, and they smiled. And, obviously they're going to check her out when they get back to campus. But I hope that as she's doing all this, they sidestep the worst case scenario for her. But I guess we'll have to wait and see a little bit. But for now, I think she's okay. And let's just hope and pray that it's a minor thing, because I'll say something positive first. If it's a negative thing, psychologically, this team will need a lot of help to get over the fact that their beloved teammate would have yet another setback. But as far as the team goes and what they're capable of, they can win without her, but I don't think they want to. I'm just being honest. I don't think there's a player on that team that would say we can do this without Azzi, even though I know they can. I think Ashlynn Shade coming in and proving that she's that type of player. She's not the shooter Azzi is. She's not the talent Azzi is. But damn, does she work hard. And, she was on last night. Had some really good moments in that game. But anyway, I'm trying to sound not so somber on this Sunday morning before I go out with my family. But man, it just would absolutely suck if it's something major, and I hope it's not. I hope if at minimum, I hope it's something that maybe she has to sit a game or two just to kind of like if there's swelling or whatever. And I hope there's nothing. I really do. But it didn't look great, and I just hope that it all works out. And when we return, we're going to talk about why Sarah Strong, the future is now. She is as impactful a college basketball player I've seen in the women's game in a very long time. We're going to talk about that after the break. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more in the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Last night, man, take the easy stuff aside and let's put that in a little box, and we'll talk about that as the time comes. But the real story of this game, I know Paige had her shoe launch. I know Azzi was great until she got a little hurt. But, man, Sarah Strong. I don't care that she's a freshman. This kid is already playing like, if not the best player in the country. We're going to give that to Paige. But she's easily in the conversation for second best player in the country. Did you see her stat line? 21 points on 8 of 10 shooting, 80%. 8 rebounds, a couple of assists, a block, a steal. And she wasn't padding her stats because she didn't play that much time. She didn't play it really that much in garbage time. She's out there dominating from the jump. At one point, Geno was yelling at her to take her defender one-on-one. And when she hesitated, he shouted, "She's the best player on the floor." And you know what? He was right. Strong was doing it all, hitting from deep, battling down low, dishing to teammates. She made Louisville's defense look like they were stuck in mud. She reminds me of this is what Geno said, that he hasn't had a player as impactful as a freshman since Brianna Stewart. And she does remind me of her in a way, but not because of their games are identical, but it's the presence, the way she controls the game. Like, You watch Bree, and she obviously she looks the part, she acts the part, but I said this on another show that Brianna Storp, that Sarah Strong probably has the resting heart rate of like 40 because nothing rattles her. Nothing. And Geno said it best. The best teams we've ever had have had a three-pronged attack. And with Bueckers, Fudd, and Strong, he might have found that magic once again. It's the truth. But it's not just her scoring. I'd love to see, and maybe I'm way off base here, but because I know her hoop stats is a great place to find, and I'm going to look it up right now because if I'm missing this, then I'm an idiot, and I will gladly say that I am. But as far as like analytics on impactful players, they have win share leaders, but that's more for the WNBA. And they do bracketology, but I'm talking, and listen, I am not going to, I have no ability to do this. I'm talking about, I want there to be a comparable to evanmedia.com, which is on the men's side. And I've explored his site a little more, but maybe he does have a women's thing. I don't think he does. He doesn't. So here's the deal. On evanmedia.com, if you're not familiar, if you're only a women's basketball fan, if you go to evanmedia.com, you could actually look at the top 10 players based on how they are affecting wins, right? So he calls it the BPR, and it's box plus minus, adjusted team efficiency, and average BPR. It shows how impactful you are per every 100 possessions. And so he does it for offense and defense, and then he makes a combined situation. So it's using advanced score metrics, play-by-play, historical information, predictive in nature, but it does a really good job of getting you to understand, who affects what. I would love to see a women's version of this, because if that was what was happening right now, you'd have to think that Sarah Strong is, if not the most impactful, up there with Paige. She's going to be in the top 5 of impacting the game. Just based on watching her play, how many games so far this year? 7. It's everything. She's a great passer. How about the pass she gave to Q on that bounce pass that led to a layup? Like that's 6'2" wing running the point, essentially throwing a Magic Johnson bounce pass, 74 feet. It's ridiculous. She's unbelievable. And guess what? She's only going to get better. There wasn't any defense that bothered her. She's great. She's great on defense on her side. There was one play where she just ripped the ball away from Louisville like it was nothing. She's incredibly strong. She's only 18 years old. She doesn't play like a freshman. She doesn't panic. She keeps making the right play, possession after possession. It is uncanny. And my favorite part of the night is always, especially after having been in the room a few weeks back, is when it's Geno, Paige, and Sarah in the postgame. And if you guys remember the play where Sarah kind of did like an up and under and she like went up and it looked like her arm like extended a ton. I guess Paige called her Go-Go Gadget arms. And because Sarah is a kid and doesn't know what Inspector Gadget is, she was just like, what? And so while Paige was being asked a question about something else, about how people were braiding their hair like her or something like that, something that is a typical Paige question, Geno was trying to explain it. Like it was like whispering to Sarah in the presser about who, Inspector Gadget is. And then someone showed her a picture and she looked at Paige and went, I'm mad at you. She's such a kid. She's the embodiment of, someone that is just doesn't care about anything other than getting the job done. And I love it. She is, and you can see the looks on Geno's face. Like, I feel like he adores her like one of his grandkids, because she is just so refreshing. She's coming in here with like my brand and my blah, blah, blah. She's just kicking ass and taking names. She's incredible. All right. We're going to move on and talk about this depth. Really thought Ashlynn Shade played great yesterday, amongst others. KK Arnold brought a lot of energy. She was her typical menace self, as Geno calls her, a TikTok menace. We're going to talk about that coming up after the break. All right. What really stood out for me in the second half, especially after Azzi went down, was how deep this team is. Geno started mixing in the bench, and they really didn't miss a beat. I think they didn't increase their lead, but they didn't give anything up. It was essentially like a 30, 40-point game the whole time. So Ashlynn came in and hit some clutch shots off the dribble. I think she hit a couple threes. And when she's doing that, 13 points off the bench, what can teams do? Not much. And if the worst thing happens and we're without Fudd for a stretch, I said it earlier in the show, I think Ashlynn is 100% ready to step up and step in. And you can see it in her confidence when she takes people off the dribble. Caitlin Chen last night, that crossover in Brooklyn was like street ball legend. Girl fell down and she finished. It just, that was incredible. And how about Jana Alfy? I thought she made some incredible strides. She's really finding her rhythm. She's walling up great. She's not fouling on some of them. She always gets some cheap calls because, listen, bigs always do. On the men's side, it's Samson Johnson. On this side, we have Jana Alfy. I love Ice Brady's physicality last night. I thought she really showed that she's, pardon me, she is making, some nice strides out there. She shows toughness. I love that. I will say that the only lull I saw in the game was in the second quarter when it was, 28-10 in the first. And then I think they cut it to either a 6 or 9-0 run. Those are the kind of lulls against a better team that can get you in trouble. So if it's like a tie game against South Carolina and they go on a 9-0 run, then you're down 10 and then you're battling your way back. So like that would be my only criticism, is they did have one semi lull where they didn't score points for 3 minutes and also gave up 6 or 7 on the other side. But back to Jana, a couple big rebounds, really some solid defensive play. She's going to be a problem for opposing teams once she gets fully comfortable. And I think that's really going to come after Christmas. I don't think she's going to be super comfortable in these next 3 games. They're going to be tough, in particular against Notre Dame and in particular actually against Iowa State with Audie Crooks. Paige, who really couldn't get her shot to fall, found other ways to impact the game. What makes me so excited about on a game where she actually does shoot well is some of the passes that Paige made to Azzi are like literally right in her shooting pocket. It's not over here, and then you got to bring it. Like the precision chest pass that she got on the break hit Azzi here, where all she had to do was didn't think about anything, and it was like butter. It was perfect. But there was like 5 of those. And also, if you're going to play Paige the way Louisville played her last night, which is like anybody but Paige, she's going to pick you apart. Every pass she makes is typically the right decision, which leads to open buckets for other folks. So, and that's what people are going to probably do. They're not going to sit back and let Paige dominate the game offensively as well. But in a way, she does, because she's dominating you, but with her brain versus her shooting. So, ended up having 10 rebounds and 6 assists. That's what leaders do. Their shots not falling. They have to find other ways to contribute. And that's what separates good ones from great ones. And she's a great one. In the end, the Huskies just really wore Louisville down. I mean, there's some talent there. They showed it last night. Some of the pedigree of some of these players. The 23-9 third quarter, dynamite. That's UConn basketball. Relentless, not letting them score, and then also having a great offensive situation. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water and close the show by saying UConn ceiling is sky high. So what do we learn from last night? Sarah Strong should be no longer called a great freshman. She is just a great player, and she's UConn's most impactful player. I think she's on a per possession basis. I think Paige is equally as impactful, which is what makes this team so dynamic. And that's insane to say 8 games into her career, but it's true. Her game is that polished and that dominant. Second, this team has depth for days. Even if Fudd is to sit out for a bit, let's knock on wood and hope she doesn't. They've got players like Ashlynn Shade ready to step up. KK Arnold was some nice complimentary minutes last night, playing some good defense. I think the luxury of having Ashlynn come off the bench and shoot the way she shot last night is a luxury most teams would kill for. And I keep saying, if they in a pinch, you can get some shooting from Morgan Shelley and Allie Zabal, who Tim Brando had a hard time saying her name last night. So I didn't feel as bad butchering it the first time I said it. And lastly, this team isn't anywhere near its ceiling yet. Paige hasn't hit her stride offensively, except for an efficiency perspective. Geno Alfy is still developing, and they're still finding ways to win by 30 against ranked opponents. So imagine what this team will look like in March, albeit hopefully everybody's healthy. I think Aubrey Griffin was warming up last night, so that's a good sign. She's close to her way back. So again, next up, Notre Dame, and that's going to be a battle. If UConn keeps playing like this, Sarah Strong keeps being, well, as strong as she is, then there's no team in the country that wants to see them not healthy. So Saturday's win wasn't perfect. We hope Azzi is fully healthy. But this team is deep. They're talented, and they've got a swagger about them right now. So I'd watch out college basketball because UConn's coming for you. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected. And to remember, it's not just about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day. Go Huskies. Happy Sunday, y'all.